Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me today, as always, are my friends Anthony Dabbundo and BJ Cunningham. In today's episode, we will be focused on the Champions League. That's right, Europe's top competition is back. We're under the lights, the European lights, for the first time since December, and we have a couple of really tasty fixtures on Tuesday and Wednesday. There are 4 games total, and then 4 games next week as well in the round of 16. Before I bring in my co-hosts, I want to just run through the futures board to get you caught up on the Champions League and where we're sitting heading into the knockout stages. Manchester City, they're the clear favorite, plus 250. Bayern Munich, plus 350, right behind them. Liverpool is plus 550. Chelsea, the defending champions, they're 7-1. PSG, 10-1. Ajax, 12-1. Real Madrid, if they're 14-1. Manchester United, they're sitting at 18-1. Juventus, 25-1. Atletico Madrid, 35-1. Inter Milan, 50-1. And then the triple digits, we got Villarreal at 100-1. Benfica, 150-1. Lille, 200-1. Lisbon, 250-1. And RB Salzburg, also at 250-1. And we'll start with a delectable matchup. 2 of the richest clubs, the most famous clubs in all of Europe. PSG, they're plus 100. Even money at home, hosting Real Madrid, plus 265. The draw is plus 270. The 2 advanced line, PSG is sitting at minus 137. Real Madrid, even money. Anthony, I think it's fair to say on this show, if you've been listening, we've kind of been skeptical of both of these teams since the beginning of the season. We think they've been overvalued, but I do think it would be fair to say that we've tended to say PSG the price has been more overinflated, I guess, than Real Madrid to this point. I think that's fair to kind of sum up how we feel about these teams. So it is an interesting matchup here. Would you make PSG the favorite to advance and agree with the bookmakers?
Only slightly. And so PSG was about minus 110 about 2 weeks ago, but the injury to Karim Benzema really takes this into a more tenuous position for Real Madrid. I think we don't know if he's going to start on Tuesday. I think he will, but he hasn't played in a couple of weeks. He's been dealing with an injury. They've been going to Luka Jovic and Vinicius as the strike force, Asensio as well, but he's just so important to their attack and the way they want to play. And really, one of the main reasons that I've seen them as overrated a lot of this year is because Benzema and Vinicius especially have vastly overperformed their expected goals numbers. And I'm not sure how long that can continue. And that's why I've been looking to bet against them. Well, if he's not even there, that's a huge loss. And you look at this attack, they created a couple expected goals the last 2 games without him. But again, only scored 1 goal in 2 games against Granada and Villarreal. So they've struggled to score chances, but I'm actually pretty encouraged by the defensive improvement that we've seen from them in the last month or so. I think they've kind of calmed down a little bit. At one point on this podcast, they were 13th in expected goals allowed per 90 in Spain, which is pretty frightening.
Yeah, and I think you got to take into account the fact that Ligue 1 is, of course, a couple notches below La Liga, but PSG they've been in good form and domestically too. And Real Madrid hasn't, but their expected goals numbers have been really good, right? They're 2-2-1 win, draw, loss in their last 5, but a plus 8.84 expected goals differential. So like you said, their underlying metrics are trending up. However, it is a tough one to call. I think you're getting a pretty good number on Real Madrid here. It would be Real Madrid or nothing for me, but like you said, I do want to keep monitoring Karim Benzema for 2 reasons. One, if he is out, this number should tick up, and I still think I'd be interested in it, even without their main man playing in front of his home crowd of France. So definitely want to keep an eye on. BJ, I think you're with me here. You've been kind of against PSG throughout this entire season, and I don't really see you slowing down here.
Yeah, I love Real Madrid here. So as of about 6 hours ago, the team squad came out for Real Madrid, or the travel squad, and Benzema is on there. And it sounds like he is ready to play. So Ancelotti basically has a choice of whether he's going to start him or bring him off the bench. I expect him to actually, start him. I'm sure it sounds like he's fit enough if he's definitely going to travel. You mentioned it. The level of play in La Liga versus Ligue 1 is actually a pretty significant gap. So PSG has obviously been cruising through. They really kind of slept through a match against Rennes on Friday. Obviously, it was a game before. They obviously had one eye on the Champions League, so you can't really fault them that much. They have been dominating some of the other big teams. The match against Lille obviously comes to mind, but I think we are forgetting how underwhelming PSG's performances were during the Champions League group stage. If you take out the two matches against Club Brugge, they had a minus 1.3 expected goal, non-penalty expected goal differential against Leipzig and Manchester City. And what tends to happen with PSG is they're used to playing this possession dominant style in Ligue 1 when they have to face teams like Manchester City, Bayern Munich comes to mind in the Champions League. They tend to try to sit deep and then destroy teams on the counter because they have, the best front three in the world. What's going to be interesting here is that Real Madrid, if you go back and look through some of their results, there have been consistent times when they play bigger sides that they're not the possession controlling type. Now, they have had defensive issues, and a lot of what those issues have boiled down to is in the 4-3-3 system, Kroos and Modric, they love to go forward and supply the attack and essentially try to overwhelm opposing defenses, which leaves Casemiro and the defense on an island. Well, that can work in La Liga against teams that are playing 4-4-2s and not really that astute in terms of attacking. Against PSG, that's a different story, and that's actually pretty concerning. But Real Madrid averaging 1.83 expected goals in La Liga, which is pretty good considering the amount of scoring per match in La Liga is significantly lower than the other five leagues. Again, I think that this match should be projected closer to a pick'em. I have these teams pretty much even when you take into the fact UEFA coefficients. And if Benzema plays, there's no reason to stay away from Real Madrid here. So I'll be on Real Madrid plus half a goal at minus 120. And I do, if Benzema's not playing, I may try to hedge out of that and maybe potentially pay PSG live and get a better number of whatever. But right now, definitely on Real Madrid in this first leg.
And Anthony, you think this could be more of a cagey affair? It should be noted, right, that the away goals rule has been chalked, right? There's no more away goals. So it's basically a straight up 2-leg matchup in the knockout rounds. Do you think, is that what's factoring into you leaning towards the under here at all?
Not necessarily. I don't think it changes much in terms of the strategy from Real Madrid. I do think they're going to be more conservative in Paris in this first leg. I agree with BJ's point that these teams are pretty close to a toss-up. I make PSG slight favorite, would not lay minus 137 on them to advance. I would have laid minus 110 2 weeks ago. I probably should have. But I think the most interesting angle here is, for me in this first leg, is that two attacks that I still think are a little overrated and two defenses that have improved quite a bit. So I'm actually playing the under 3 at minus 115. PSG in the first 3 months of the season, and I know that we can't really compare Ligue 1 to La Liga, but they allowed about 0.9 goals per 90 in France in the first 3 months. Since then, since December, only 0.65 goals per 90. So they've improved considerably there defensively. And Real Madrid also has improved. They were 1.15 expected goals allowed per 90 since November has ended. December clock, calendar turns. They're actually up to 8th in the league now defensively, and they're only allowing about 0.8 XG per 90 defensively since then. So I think the best way to beat PSG is in direct and quick counterattacks. Real Madrid can do that, and they've been effective. We've seen them do that against Barcelona. But I also think their pressing numbers are not very high. So you're looking at a situation where PSG is probably going to have some stale possession and really struggle to break them down, and then Real's going to try to hit on the counter. Real Madrid also only 15th in crosses in Spain. That's a good way to get at PSG, and they really won't be able to do it. Their Neymar looks like he's going to come off the bench too. I'd prefer he be out of the lineup for my under because he's a great attacker, but he doesn't do much defending. So overall, all these points to the under. Idrissa Gueye is also back for PSG. He's missed a bunch of games, but he's probably their best defensive midfielder. Breaking up play was excellent. Probably one of the most impressive defensive midfielder displays I've seen all year was him against Manchester City in the first leg when they played in Paris, and PSG beat them 2-0.
Yeah, one thing I'll mention is that Achraf Hakimi is an unbelievable right back in terms of getting forward and progressing the ball and putting crosses in, but he's really not that great of a defender. So having to defend Vinicius Jr. and having to basically stay back with him and not being able to come forward like he's usually able to against a lot of teams that don't have that type of left winger that can, punish you down that left side. That's another problem where I think PSG is probably going to have to sit a little deeper than they'd like to. But it'll be really interesting to see who actually controls the possession here. I'm very, very interested to see who's the more aggressive team and who is more passive looking to hit him on the counter. So it's a very, very interesting matchup here in the first leg.
Yeah, and I think if you're watching this game as a neutral or if you're a bettor, the most interesting angle in terms of tactically is the fullbacks for me, because Real Madrid, the main change they've made is being a little more conservative with their fullbacks, and like you said, Hakimi and Nuno Mendes, the left back for PSG, likely to start. They're pretty aggressive. I wonder if Pochettino will let them be as aggressive as they normally are, given that, and how much each manager is willing to take risks with their fullbacks, likely, because of how good guys like Vinicius and Mbappe are as wide forwards, could determine how open this game is.
You have to go back to October 30th for the last time Manchester City lost a game. They are the prohibitive favorite in the other match on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Manchester City minus 330, traveling to Lisbon to play Sporting, plus 950 right now. The draw is plus 270. The two advanced line, this is just at Caesars right now. It's in New York. It's pretty hard to find. I had to go to Caesars for this. This is City's minus 1200 there. Lisbon plus 600 to advance. Most other places I think would have Lisbon a little higher. But I do think that there is a path to success here for the Portuguese side, especially in the opening leg, right? This is a really good defensive outfit, and they play very low event soccer, right? They're 2.64 total goals per match. That's 13th in Portugal, which is already a low scoring league. And City, they don't really play that high event either, right? 3 goals total goals per match on average, and only 32% of their matches are both teams to score. A lot of that is because they're so dominant on the ball and defensively. And it's interesting to note that they are averaging just 3 goals per match, including matches where they've scored 7 and such. That said, so I think this could be a little bit more of a slog than you'd imagine in a game that's lined this way, minus 330 plus 950. I actually think Sporting, I might sprinkle the money line here. I think that they are within a shot here. Manchester City, like I said, they haven't lost in forever. They're a machine, but they're going to have to step up in their competition. Just when you look back at who they've played the past couple matches in the Premier League, Brentford and Norwich, they rolled and they drew with Southampton. So this is a little bit of a step up in competition. I do think that Sporting do have a slight kind of glimmer of hope to pull an upset here. Do I think that they'll advance? No, I don't think they can get it done over 180 minutes. But in terms of what we're going to see on the money line on Tuesday, plus 950 now, I think you can get double digits on them at some point. I do think it's a fun bet to make here on Sporting. BJ, anything for you here, City and the Portuguese side?
Yeah, I do like Sporting Lisbon a decent amount here against City. I do think City's a little bit overvalued here on the road. Since the beginning of the new year, City hasn't been putting up the dominant type performances that we've seen throughout most of 2021. They beat Arsenal on the road, but they were gifted a red card and a penalty. They only beat Chelsea 1-0, only created 0.7 expected goals, drew with Southampton on the road. They slept through a match against Brentford in the midweek where they were gifted a penalty and a goalkeeping mistake. And then, they beat Norwich 4-0, whatever. They're the worst team in the Premier League. Sporting has been playing really well this entire year and really since the Champions League. They had a huge match against Porto on Friday, which they ended up drawing 2-2, and a crazy brawl ended, was at the end of it. So if you want to see that, go watch the video. It's pretty crazy. But in the Portuguese first division, they have a plus 1.23 expected goal differential per 90 minutes in the 6th most difficult league in Europe. That's pretty impressive. The big thing with Sporting throughout the group stage is they really, really struggled against Ajax. They lost both by combined 9-3. And you can make the case that is indicative of what's going to happen here with Manchester City. But I'm not so sure that's the case. Ajax and City play 2 completely different styles of play. Ajax, it's one-touch football. It's get the ball moving. It's direct attacks. It's try to overwhelm you. City, as we've been talking about many times on this podcast over the last month, they have turned back into that possession dominant side, slow, pragmatic, trying to basically hold possession in your half for most of the match. Well, Sporting's fine playing that way because they usually play out of a 4-4-2, and they're usually not used to having a large share of the possession because, especially when they have to play some of the bigger sides. So they're used to that kind of style of play. And they do have some attackers that can punish you, like Pablo Sarabia, former PSG striker. So I only have City projected at minus 185. So I do like Sporting Lisbon on the spread plus 1.5 at even money quite a bit. And I do think that they will be able to maybe get a result here, maybe, a 1-0 loss at home.
Anthony, I know you're passing on this one for now, But do you think City sets up as the type of team to cover a 1.5 or to cover a big money line here? Because like we were saying, we do think that the game state here should suit an underdog, especially a big one.
Yeah, I lean toward the under. 3 goals, -115 right now. So Sporting had a negative expected goal difference in the group. And I know BJ mentioned it. They got pummeled by Ajax twice, and they pummeled Besiktas twice, and they played about even with Dortmund over 2 legs. And there was a red card in there for Dortmund. So that kind of throws things into a loop. But they were relatively fortunate when you consider the weakness of the group and the fact that they came through with a negative goal difference. There's 3 teams actually that have a negative expected goal difference. Benfica, Sporting, Atletico Madrid. Benfica and Sporting are, in my opinion, the 2 worst teams left in the field. Last year, there was one team who had a negative expected goal difference and got through the group. It was Mönchengladbach. They lost 2-0 both legs to City. Actually, funny enough, played the under 3 in that match too, the first leg. And Gladbach did a pretty good job defensively, but City break through once or twice, and it never looked like Sporting, or in that case, Gladbach, had a chance to score. I think it's a similar setup here, which is why I lean toward the under. And then if we go back 2 years ago, it was Lyon and Valencia. Lyon had an insane luck box run to the semis, despite conceding like 8 or 9 expected goals in over 3 matches to Juve, City, Bayern. And then the year before that was Porto, who got in with a negative expected goal difference and got thrashed by Liverpool. So the history of teams who get into this knockout stage with meh XG difference does not go well, but I don't want to lay 1.5 with City either. So I am leaning towards the under and going to probably end up passing. Also, one more team. I mentioned Valencia. They gave up 8 goals in 2 matches to Atalanta in the knockout stage. So not a great history for those teams.
All right, let's flip it to Wednesday. These games should be pretty wide open considering 3 of the 4 teams involved are Liverpool, Salzburg, and Bayern. We'll start with the Liverpool match. They are traveling to Milan to take on Inter. Inter is plus 245 at home, hosting the Reds plus 110. The draw here is plus 260. Liverpool, prohibitive favorites to advance, minus 450. Inter 3-1. The Italian side, let's just go over them real quick. We spent a lot of time talking about the Premier League on this podcast, so we do talk about these bigger clubs in other leagues, but it does beg to mention that Inter has been really good in Serie A. They are the title favorites right now. Best goal differential, second in goals allowed, and the best expected goal differential per 90, and best expected goals for per 90 in Serie A, which of course has not really been up to snuff this year, the league in general, especially compared to the Premier League, which is far and away the best league in the world right now. However, this I think is a pretty good spot to back the home side. Liverpool's coming off a real slog against Burnley, a 1-0 win, which they were pretty lucky to get out of that one with a win. Wout Weghorst missed a couple of big opportunities. Jay Rodriguez was stuffed by Alisson as well in the first half. It could have been 2 or 3-0 Burnley, and it was a rainy, windy match at Turf Moor. Now they got to travel to Italy just a couple of days later to take on Inter. I think it's a decent spot to try to beat Liverpool here. Plus 245 is a good number on a really good team. They might not be in the same tier as Liverpool, but just considering the spot, I think the underdog here is worth a shot. BJ, anything for you?
I do lean towards Inter, but I'll ultimately be passing. The problem with this is that Inter's had a really brutal schedule coming out of the international break. They've had to play AC Milan, Roma, Napoli, and now Liverpool, all in the span of 11 days. And I'm pretty sure their best midfielder, Nico Barea, is suspended for this match after getting a red card against Real Madrid in the group stage. Now, the case for Inter Milan is that they were essentially better both times against Real Madrid. They won on expected goals in both those matches. They obviously got the red card in the second one. They're also the number 1 team in Serie A and playing through pressure. So you could say they could handle Jurgen Klopp's high press fairly successfully. However, given the form that Liverpool is in right now, I know they've played essentially this will be their 4th match in, essentially a week, but the form that Liverpool's in, especially getting Mo Salah and Sadio Mane back, it's really troublesome, especially when you look at some of the results that Inter has had versus some of the top sides in Italy. They haven't really been that dominant. They've got a couple wins against, Napoli and Juventus and everything like that, but consistently against the top sides, they've been struggling as of late. So, obviously losing to AC Milan, drawing with Napoli on the weekend, I will be leaning towards Inter, but I also do not want to step out in front of this Liverpool freight train, which is really looking good, healthy, and has a lot of depth. So I'll be passing, but definitely lean towards Inter.
Yeah, I think the general consensus on the show is I'm going to be betting Inter on the money line. Anthony, you're also leaning that way, so it could be a 3 for 3 here on the Italian side.
Yeah, the market's pretty sharp here. I think if Inter had Barella and Bastoni, I'd probably fire on them plus a half a goal. But like BJ said, they're both out here. I think the most interesting angle is Liverpool's away form in the Champions League. Now, some of it is skewed because the last match they went to Milan and didn't really need a result, and they kind of played the backups. But over the last 3-ish years, Liverpool's form away from home in the Champions League, especially in the knockout stage, has been significantly worse than they've been at Anfield. I think Liverpool ultimately ends up going through here because they're probably going to dominate the home leg, but I think they're going to have some trouble here. Inter is pretty good on the counter, and I think that's the biggest thing here. They play through pressure relatively well, and they've been a more possession-based side this year than they actually were last year under Conte. That's more of the Inzaghi way. But in this situation, we've seen a lot of Liverpool, even today against Burnley, getting exposed. Their defense is just not quite as dominant as it was, in years past. And I think, whether it's the aging midfield or whether it's, them being just overly hyper aggressive, Trent Alexander-Arnold, as much as he gets forward, there always is space in behind him. I think there are avenues for Inter to get at Liverpool here. And this is the one match I think could end up being really back and forth. Of course, the next match as well. But I think of the 4 relative to the number, this is the one where if you're looking for like an over and you want to just have fun and watch them for some goals, this is the one I think has the potential to really have a lot of fireworks. The most interesting thing for, Liverpool going forward is Mane going to start? Luis Diaz, I'm guessing he will, but, are they going to go Jota, Firmino? There's so many options that Klopp can have with his front 3. Does he go with Mane, Jota, and Salah? Okay, you lose a little bit of defensive work with those 3 because Firmino's not in. If you play Firmino and Jota on the wing, then Mane's not in there. So I'm interested to see what Klopp does in terms of the tactics here. So I lean towards Inter, but without Barella and Bastoni, I'm probably passing.
You're saying that there could be fireworks in this match. There will almost certainly be fireworks in Austria as our RB Salzburg are 8-1 hosting Bayern Munich -310. The draw here is +475. The 2 advanced line, Bayern -1200, Salzburg 6-1. The over under here, as you'd expect, is set pretty high, 3.25 with basically a pick 'em on either side, 3.5 with the juice towards the under a little bit. Bayern coming off a really interesting loss to Bochum in the Bundesliga over the weekend. I guess that was a pretty big, look ahead spot. I guess maybe we all were sleeping on that one. This game has, just considering the way both these teams can play and both these teams can score, it has goals written all over it. Is there any, a contrarian value in this matchup here, BJ? Maybe fading the back and forth affair that everyone's expecting.
No, I think it's time to square out and take an over here. It's going to be an open game because for those who are unaware, Salzburg is the sister club of RB Leipzig. So they play a very similar style, high pressing, high intensity, open style of football, which in a match like this against Bayern Munich is going to lend itself to just a ton of chances at both ends of the pitch. That is pretty much what we saw between these two teams last season in the group stage of the Champions League. Bayern won both matches by a combined score of 9-3, and over 4 expected goals were created in each match. I've said it a million times, but Bayern's offensive numbers in the Bundesliga and even in the Champions League, just completely out of this world. 2.78 expected goals per match in the Bundesliga and 2.3 expected goals per match in the Champions League. So they're going to have no trouble obliterating this Salzburg defense once again. On the flip side, Salzburg is pretty potent offensively. They have some good young attacking players, obviously American Brandon Aronson, along with Ademi and other guys that can potentially, do what Bochum did to Bayern this past weekend. They're averaging a little over 2 expected goals in the Austrian Bundesliga, and they did create 10.8 expected goals in Champions League group play, but you got to put a little asterisk next to that because they had 5 penalties, which we were complaining about a lot, if you remember back in October or whenever that was. We've just seen it time and time again that Bayern will not take their foot off the gas if they go ahead. In the Bundesliga this year, they're averaging 3.5 expected goals per 90 minutes when playing with a lead. That's insanity. And especially this being the Champions League round of 16, I'm guessing they're going to want to put this to bed, in the first leg. So I love over 3.5 goals. I'm just currently at plus 110. I have 3.6 projected. So I'm going to square out and take the over between these two teams.
Yeah, it could be an interesting one to play live as well if there isn't a goal in the first couple minutes here. Like you said, this thing could get off the rails pretty quickly, and there's no over that is going to be dead when these two teams meet. Anthony, anything here between Bayern and Salzburg for you?
Not really either. BJ mentioned how open the games were last year. I think he's not crediting enough how competitive Salzburg was in those games. Salzburg creating 1.8 expected goals in the first game, losing 6-2 because Bayern ran red hot. And then the first leg, they actually won the expected goals battle, 2.7 to 1.3. Now, what's changed since then? Nagelsmann has come in for Hansi Flick at Bayern, but the personnel is damn near the same for Bayern. Goretzka may be back. Not clear whether he'll be able to play in this game. I think there's a drop-off between him and, Corentin Tolisso, who has played well in spurts, but he's just not as consistent of a player in the middle for them. So, if they have to roll with a Kimmich Goretzka or even like a Kimmich Muller, Tolisso, like there's a big difference there between that and how solid they are. So that would all point towards BJ's over as well. If Tolisso has to play instead of Goretzka, I think Salzburg can absolutely hit them on the break here, but also their XG numbers are also super underwhelming. I mentioned the stat about negative expected goal difference. Well, let's just take out all penalties. They would be one of those teams as well. So I'm ultimately passing here. Of course, the penalties change the games. Going up a goal on a penalty, you get the XG for it. If we just take that out and pretend the goal never happened, it doesn't really work. But it gives an indication of how fortunate they've been. And so while I think Adeyemi and them can cause problems on the counter, I desperately fear Bayern just running away with this and killing them in transition, similar to what they did to Leipzig earlier this year, which was a March team. And there's still some remnants of Jesse March in this Salzburg side.
And that wraps up the Champions League portion of the show. There is a Premier League match this week. There's going to be some sprinkled EPL matches as they try to make up games from postponements. And this one is delightful, just an absolute delight to bet. Manchester United at the Theatre of Dreams, minus 135, hosting Brighton and Hove Albion. They're near 4-1. They're plus 380 on the three-way line. The draw is plus 290. What can you say about what Manchester United has been going through the past few weeks? They have now had back-to-back matches that followed a very similar script. Good first half, get out to a 1-0 lead, and can't get the separation needed to put teams away. And Southampton and Burnley have both pegged them back for draws consecutively. And when you look at the underlying metrics for these teams over the course of the season, they're not too far off one another. I mean, I think we'd all agree that Brighton should be considered a top half Premier League team at this point. They have a great manager and they do punch up really well as an underdog. They are sitting at a minus 0.02 expected goal differential per 90. Manchester United is plus 0.06 in that same metric. So really not that much separating these two teams this season. And as we've said all the time, we say all the time on this podcast, like there isn't a team you want to back at a bigger price more than Brighton. And you're getting a great price against a team truly in miserable form. Both, I mean, you can't sit here and handicap psychology and the team's confidence level, but it's pretty clear that Manchester United right now, they're fighting some demons. And Ralph Rangnick hasn't really figured that part out. He's admitted as such as well. Meanwhile, Brighton Hove Albion, they just know exactly what they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it on the pitch. So I think it's well worth it to take a shot here on the money line on the Seagulls. Anthony, what do you have for the lone Premier League match, the lonely Premier League match this week?
I'm taking Brighton, but I don't love it as much as you and BJ do, I think, in this situation. And the reason for that is that the narrative around United has become so distorted to reality in the last 3 or 4 matches, where, yes, there's the mental thing where they can't break through and get over the hump. but they were pretty dominant the first half hour against Southampton, the first hour against Burnley. 12 shots to 0 against Burnley. Should have been up 2 goals, only went up 1. Same thing against Southampton. They had 2 or 3 huge chances and couldn't quite convert. And then they get pegged back as they tire out. They've only scored, 2 goals from their last about 7 expected. And if you can count the Middlesbrough match, it's 3 goals from about 8.5 expected. So they're running really cold. And a lot of that is Ronaldo, whose numbers are frighteningly bad when you look at the fact that his shot numbers have continued to decline and his other numbers, he doesn't add anything else to this team. So he's really not doing much for them. But at some point, the finishing is going to turn for United. You could argue they were due some of this regression after all the luck box wins they've had over the years when and BJ and I and Michael have faded them. But at some point, it is going to turn around with the finishing. So I think if you don't want to play Brighton pregame, you'll definitely get a decent shot at them live as well. If United scores early and you haven't invested pregame, buy Brighton, because the pressing just doesn't last a full 90 minutes for this United side, and teams are able to fight back into this game. And I'm expecting Brighton to be able to do the same. Brighton have been really good playing from behind, and that's surprising for a team who has had trouble attacking against teams who are, sitting deeper. And they did beat Watford 2-0 pretty comfortably over the weekend, but they've tended to be a team who, based on their profile, would struggle to break down teams from playing from behind, but they actually have done a good job. And they have a good set piece record. That's big against United, given that United doesn't defend set pieces well. So my numbers make me play Brighton here. I'm happy to play Brighton, but let me just say I don't love it as much as you guys do.
That's a real shame. BJ, you're sitting here wearing a Brighton shirt.
I'm still joining them. I'm still betting it.
I know.
It's not getting carried away.
Just have some energy.
Have some conviction.
It's not like
in your numbers.
Come on.
BJ,
get on the Brighton train with us. I love Brighton. I mean, this is obviously, I agree with Anthony that United has been trending in the right directions in terms of their expected goals numbers. They probably should have beat Burnley. They probably should have beat Southampton. Obviously, Paul Pogba coming back helps them a ton in unlocking their attack. And United's pressing numbers have been better. Under Rangnick, they're about 10.2 passes per defensive action when they're around 13.4 under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But they didn't do a really good job against Southampton in terms of that pressing. And Anthony has mentioned it multiple times. It seems like they're fit enough to press for the first half, and then after that, it kind of just drops off. Well, they only had a 26% pressure success rate against Southampton, and Brighton, they're one of the best teams in the Premier League at playing through pressure, which is why they profile so well as an underdog most times. They're third in the Premier League in offensive pass per defensive action. And if we look back at their results against the top sides, if you throw out the one match that they just got completely pounded by Manchester City, they basically have an even expected goal differential versus the top 7. Now, they haven't played Tottenham yet this year, and this is their first match against United. But again, this is, we say it all the time. This is a top 6 defense in the Premier League. They're third in big scoring chances allowed. It's a really, really well-organized, good squad that is going to be able to defend United. They're going to be able to play through United's press. And most importantly, they're going to be able to press United back, because they also are pretty up there in the top 5 in passes per defensive action. While United allowed Southampton around 9 and change passes per defensive action. Now, you could say Brighton's not going to press that frenetic of a pace, but again, I can't look away from Brighton here. This is a really, really good number for them. I have United projected, I believe, around plus 120. So I love Brighton plus half a goal at plus 120.
Yeah, it's it's going to be a good one to watch. It's for a lot of reasons. If United do win, I think all of a sudden everyone's going to say, oh, they are heading in the right direction, top 4 side. And if they lose, oh boy, maybe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will be back in charge.
And United's schedule is going to get really, really tough in March. They have a stretch, I believe, versus 4 just really hard teams. I'm pretty sure it's like Atletico, Manchester City, Liverpool, Tottenham. It's going to get really hard for United. So if they want to finish not only top 4 but top 6, they kind of need this match. And and if they don't get it, it's going to be panic button time for them.
And you throw in the wrinkle of having to deal with Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, and it'll be an interesting couple weeks here, as it always is for Manchester United. All right, let's shift gears back to Europe real quickly. We'll go through some Europa League matches. The 2 headliners that we picked out Barcelona, they're minus 105, taking on Napoli, plus 290. The draw is plus 265. So Thursday kickoff, 12:45 p.m. BJ, you're on this match. You think there's some value here. What side are you taking?
Yeah, I love Napoli plus half a goal. So if people don't know, Napoli is maybe the best defensive team in all of Europe right now. And they've only allowed 18 goals in 24 matches and only 7 big scoring chances all season long, which is insane considering Serie A is averaging a little over 3 goals per match this season. Now, obviously, me and Anthony have said that that's probably not going to sustain, but still, it's very impressive. Even in the Europa League group stage, they had a plus 7.3 expected goal differential in 6 matches and were really undeserving to finish in second place in that group. Barcelona obviously has been improving a ton under Xavi, around a plus 7.5 expected goal differential in 10 La Liga matches. They did win their, they're obviously playing Espanyol right now as we're taping this, but the previous weekend they did beat Atletico 4-2, but they only created about 1 expected goal. So I'm a little concerned that they're not going to be able to create the amount of chances that they're used to against the Napoli defense that is just incredible. What will be very interesting to me is if Barcelona's pressing can be successful. Now, under Xavi, their passes per defensive action is around 6.7, which is really, really, really good. But Napoli is the second best team in Serie A at playing through pressure. The key here for Barcelona is I think they have to have a large share of the possession to be at their best. Under Xavi, they're averaging a little bit over 60% possession, and they rely a lot at playing out of the back, a lot of build-up play. Well, Napoli, they're also a fairly possession-dominant side themselves in Serie A, and a lot of what they do is build up attacks. They're the second slowest direct speed per Optus. So if Barcelona is not able to control that large share of the possession, and Napoli is able to slow this match down and make it very pragmatic, defensive, I think it's a good spot for Napoli to pick up a result here in the first leg. I have this match projected very, very close to a pick'em, so I like Napoli plus half a goal, minus 115.
Anthony, real quick on Barcelona and Napoli.
Yeah, I look towards Barcelona a little bit, but the number's not there. Like BJ said, I cannot get there. Napoli's been very improved, and one of the main reasons why they're finally getting healthy. And Koulibaly is back in the center of the defense, and Victor Osimhen is back from injury. And what do they do in their first 3 games? Really, the last 3 games they played, they dominate Salernitana. Okay, but you still create 4 expected goals. Control the match against Inter Milan. Probably unfortunate to not take all 3 points from that match, I thought. And then dominate Venezia as well. So they're playing a little better, and Barcelona's playing a little better. But I would look towards the under for some of the same reasons BJ mentioned, with this Napoli defense significantly improving. Barcelona, I think, at home will have the lion's share of the possession, but I'm not sure they'll do a ton with it. And so that sets up for a pretty conservative game in the first leg. And then I think the second leg could be more open depending on game state and what happens.
And you have something for us for Leipzig. They're minus 110, taking on Real Sociedad, plus 310. And the draw is sitting at plus 260. Another Thursday kickoff in the Europa League for this one. Where are you going for Leipzig and Sociedad?
Yeah, I'll be doing my Europa League best bets, taking a page out of the BJ playbook this week, I believe. So you can see that on the Action Network. But one pick I really like is the over in the Leipzig and Sociedad game. These are 2 attacks who have considerably underperformed their expected goals this season. Sociedad, we look at it, they only have 22 goals in 22 games. That's pretty dire, but really they've created about 28 and a half expected goals. You expect some positive regression there. And this Leipzig defense, it seems crazy to say because it feels like they've been giving up goals left and right, and they have improved marginally under Domenico Tedesco, the new manager, but they're still conceding a good amount of big scoring chances. And so I think Sociedad will be able to get some of those in transition against this Leipzig attack or defense. So I'm rolling with over 2.5 goals in the first leg. And then I lean toward Leipzig on the money line as well, but just not a lot of faith in Germany, given how poorly every team but Bayern played in the knockout or in the Champions League group stage, and the Europa League group stage wasn't that much better for them either. So I'm rolling with the over 2.5 goals.
And real quick, before we get to our favorite bets for the Champions League this week, you two can rapid fire through your other Europa League bets. BJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah, real quick. Dortmund Rangers over 3 goals at even money. So Erling Haaland didn't play today against Union Berlin, but it sounds like he is going to be back for this match. Obviously, the Dortmund offense has overperformed a lot, but this is a good spot against the Rangers defense that I don't think has been very good. They in the group stage in the Europa League, they were in a group with Lyon and Sparta Prague. And even though they finished in second place, they had a -2 expected goal difference against them. Even a few weeks ago, when Rangers faced Celtic in the Old Firm derby, they were thrashed by them in a 3-0 win, and all those goals coming in the first half. Rangers now does have some fun attacking options. They brought in Amad Diallo on loan from Manchester United. They brought in Aaron Ramsey on loan from Juventus. They're averaging 2.2 expected goals per match in the Scottish Premier League, and their matches are averaging 3.2 expected goals. So, I mean, if Dortmund has Holland in there and they're able to mimic what Celtic was able to do in the Old Firm, which is basically inverted fullbacks, overloads on each side, it's going to be a problem. There's going to be a lot of problems for Rangers. So I have this match predicted about 3.4 goals. So I love over 3 goals, even money.
Anthony, anything else for you in Europa League?
Yeah, I've got a couple picks. I'm fading some Spanish teams, fading Sevilla, who is going to be laying a goal and a half at home against Dinamo Zagreb. This Sevilla attack has been in absolute dire straits recently. It took them over an hour to get a shot against Osasuna. They really struggled against Elche, didn't break through until like the 65th minute. And really only had 4 shots, I think, in the first half. So this attack just has not been good enough for me to trust them. The defense has been pretty fortunate. So it would only really take 1 goal from Dinamo Zagreb for me to feel very comfortable with this +1.5 number, even though they're on the road where, Zagreb has that great, home field, but they don't tend to travel as well. I do think they're going to go all out for a goal here and then make it very difficult. Sevilla just hasn't played well enough to score 3. So I'm taking the +1.5. And then Zenit, BJ's Russian boys we backed them a couple times in the Champions League group stage and they came up short for us, conceded some late goals, but the performances at home were actually pretty encouraging, especially against Juve and against Chelsea when they beat them. So there's reason to think that they can be very competitive here and should be more favored than they are. They're about to pick a -115. You look at 538, has it about as a toss-up, but really, I just don't think this Betis defense is particularly good. The attack's been running really hot. There's still some holes for them defensively that I think Zenit can exploit. And it's gonna be very difficult for Betis to break through on the road, even though, the Russians are in the middle of a pause and, there could be a war starting by then. So who knows? But overall, I like Zenit at home in the first leg.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about that, I obviously have the weather report from St. Petersburg on Thursday. It's actually be pretty nice, 35 degrees and snowing. So for February, that's pretty good, I think, in St. Petersburg. I'll give one more real quick. The Europa Conference League is also going on. Celtic -1.5 against Bodø Glimt, a Norwegian team. The Norwegian league ends around the beginning of December. So they've only been playing friendlies, haven't played a real competition in basically over 2 months. Celtic's been in incredible form. They average around 2.5 expected goals per 90 minutes in the Scottish Premier League. And really, we're a really good offense in the Europa League group stage, but we're just in a group with Betis and Leverkusen, and we're really unfortunate to get through. So I think Celtic blows out Norwegian side Bodø Glimt as well in the Europa Conference League.
And with that, we will move on to the final part of the show, our favorite Champions League bets for the first set of knockout round games for the 2021-2022 Champions League. Anthony, let's start with you. What's your best bet for out of the 4 games this week?
Yeah, Real Madrid, PSG under 3, -115. It's actually the only bet I've placed so far of the 4 matches. I like next week's card a lot better. Excited to get into that one as well. With that being said, we have 2 defenses who are considerably trending up in the last few months. PSG has gone from conceding about 0.9 goals per 90 to about 0.65 in the last couple months. Real Madrid's defense has improved. They were bottom half of the league in the first half of the season, and now they've started to come around. They're up to 8th in expected goals allowed. I really don't think they're going to press PSG a ton here. I think they're going to sit off, look to counter, and PSG will have their best defensive midfielder back in Idrissa Gana Gueye, who had a stellar game against City and I think can break up play and won't get overrun by the midfield, given how old Real Madrid's midfield is as well. So I think this game sets up to be a little more conservative, both managers kind of feeling each other out a little bit before we get a pretty fun second leg in Spain next week. So I'm going under 3 goals, think it could be a 1-1 type game, and excited for that one. Really the game of the entire week.
Yeah, I'll go next. I like a Wednesday match the best. I like Inter Milan plus 245 to pull the upset over Liverpool. Like I said, I think this is a pretty tough spot for the Reds. They're traveling from a windy, rainy turf moor where they won 1-0 to Burnley on Sunday, traveling to Italy, and they will have to play a lot better than they did against Burnley if they want to get a result here on the road. Inter Milan, best goal differential. They have the best expected goal differential per 90 and the best expected goals for per 90 in Serie A. This is a really good team, and one that I think has a lot of value at plus 245 at home in a huge matchup for the Italian side. So give me Inter Milan plus 245 is my favorite bet in the Champions League this week. BJ, what about you?
Salzburg, Bayern Munich over 3.5 goals at plus 110. Salzburg, obviously the sister club of RB Leipzig, so they play a very similar style, high intensity, high pressing, very open. And that's what we saw when these two teams met in the group stage in last year's Champions League. Bayern won on aggregate 9-3. Each of the matches had over 4 expected goals created. I've said it many times, but Bayern's expected goals numbers this season are so impressive. Around 2.8 expected goals per match in the Bundesliga, 2.3 XG per 90 in the Champions League group stage. So they should have no trouble ripping apart this Salzburg defense. Salzburg, also another offense that profiles really well. They have some fun, young attacking guys. They're averaging a little over 2 expected goals in the Austrian Bundesliga. They did create around 11 expected goals in the Champions League group stage. You obviously have to put an asterisk next to that because they did get 5 penalties. But going back to those 2 matches against Bayern Munich, last year's Champions League group stage, they created a lot of expected goals. They were pretty threatening on the counter. So I think this is going to be a very open style of game. And Bayern, when they get ahead, they do not take their foot off the gas. They're averaging 3.5 expected goals per 90 minutes when playing with a lead in the Bundesliga this year. So I think this one has goals written all over it. So I love over 3.5 goals at plus 110.
And that wraps up another episode of Wondergoal. For Anthony Dabbundo and BJ Cunningham, I'm Michael Leboff. We will see you again on Thursday morning for our Premier League preview. Best of luck in the Champions League, everybody.